Hello, everyone. Well, it's been a pretty wild weather pattern here, like much of North America. It has been in the single digits for a lot of the time, with wind chills in the negative 15 to negative 20. Now, I recognize that's quite balmy compared to other places like North Dakota with temperatures in the negative 20 and wind chills in the negative 60s. So it's all relative, isn't it? We recognize that. And so we go outside anyways, and we feel what the air is like, and especially we observe what is being used by wildlife here on this 3.5 acres of rewilding land. Now, the camera looks like the video is terrible right now because of the snow. It looks really dark, so that's all right. It'll still work out for what I want to show you. We're going to just do some little walkabouts here and there and show you what we have seen being used. This has been a very strange season. As I've indicated many times over, this was a very short growing degree day summer. In fact, so much so that many of the wildflowers that are the main food source at this time of year for small birds like sparrows and juncos, there isn't any. So I'm talking like goldenrods, some of the late sunflowers, asters. There's just no seeds. They didn't have time to develop. So that's pretty crap. I don't want another year like that. I know that they don't either. So I'm showing you this walnut right here because there is a big poison ivy vine growing up it. That has been one of the hottest food sources for weeks and weeks. And it's many different species of birds. Woodpeckers, small songbirds, including warblers, juncos, titmice, everybody you can think of are on that poison ivy vine. Out here, I think it was last year or the year before I did that video, birds huddled in the wind, and this is a wildflower zone. And so even though a lot of the seeds in here didn't develop that are the late season ones, you can see the way the plants have tipped. And this has offered so much shelter during these very challenging temperatures. So the birds will actually get out of the wind in the plants on the opposite side of where the wind's coming from. And I'll show you somewhere else that they've done that too. Another really hot plant right now is this pokeweed, and it doesn't look like much right now. I know a lot of this doesn't look like much to our human eyes, but we just got to be okay with that because it's critical for the survival of so many of these birds. So this pokeweed, you can see some of the seed structures, they're just gone. They've been eaten for months now. It's an amazingly productive plant. I love it so much. So does Steve. We cannot wait to have more of it. And there have been a few dried fruits still hanging on that have just been difficult to access. They have been grabbed lately. It's been mostly cardinals dangling on here, grabbing those dried fruits. The woodpeckers are working all these stalks. The pokeweed, cut plant, goldenrod. Now out front here, interestingly, we have a lot of sumac berries still up there, but it's not time for them. They always disappear later. Now that's Steve out there. He's on the road. We use the road as our personal trail. Out here in the front yard, most of these grass seeds are completely gone. So it's bottlebrush, beak, and Virginia wild rye. You can also see that some of that sumac is dying because it's just that way. It's a short-lived shrub tree, and the woodpeckers feast on whoever is living in there. We're going to go over a little bit to an area where we've witnessed a lot of birds hanging out because I think it's an important consideration for everybody's nature preserve. So hold on a moment. All right, I'm not even there yet, but I had to stop here because we burn wood for a lot of the winter. These come from some of the lumber mills around us. They're called cutoffs. And so it's unused wood, and they sell it for really, really cheap. We lose power here, or we did when we first moved here, a lot, and it was really nice to have a consistent heat source. But the Carolina wrens love searching through the wood piles for insects because a ton of insects do overwinter in the wood pile. We always save as many as we find. We have an extra wood pile on the porch. That's for all the little insects. That's important for Carolina wrens, and then areas that aren't covered in snow. So our driveway is rocks and a lot of just, I don't know what you want to call them, weeds. I hate calling anything weeds, but be like dandelions and different types of maybe crabgrasses, cool season annuals, different mustards and whatnot, plantain, and all the seeds are always eaten off of those. So having some exposed areas is something that the birds love. They're always hanging out under there, poking around, pecking around. And then we're heading over here. How's this looking? It's like a white and gray land, isn't it? We did have some sunshine this week when it got really cold, which is thrilling. The conifers have been somewhere where a lot of birds will shelter or feed underneath because the snow hasn't accumulated under there. Look at the south side of the woodpile. See how it melts right off there? Sun aspect really is a big deal. We try to make sure there's enough areas where wildlife can get out of the wind and also get access to the sun. Now over here we have several brush piles that have come from thinning operations, and also, oh, there they went. There went a bird right now. And also wood that was left here. So when we moved in, there was wood fencing everywhere. We repurposed a lot of it for garden fencing, and then as it rotted and we trimmed down the garden, we just made big brush piles with it. And this one especially isn't the most attractive when you have these cut boards, but it doesn't really matter. This is again when we're just thinking about reusing things, repurposing them, and then letting things that'll melt back into the earth do it at their own rate. And I am on the east side of this pile, and Steve noticed this the other day. Do you see all this bird poop? It is on every single board over here. So the really cold blasts of wind have been from the southwest. And so the forest, sorry about my fingers, I keep sticking them in there because it's cold out. They've been sheltered a bit on the south by our neighbor's woods. But the west of us is that farm field, and it just comes roaring across there, these really cold winds. And so every brush pile we have made is loaded with bird scat. It's really fantastic to see how much this shelter has been used and that it's worked. Unlike in that year where I had birds huddled in the wind and we actually found dead frozen birds in different places, we have had none of that this year. And so that is fantastic. We just keep trying to think about how to make sure that there's enough food here and enough shelter and enough water. The water is pretty easy when we have electricity because we plug in our bird bath heater. And we have a stream that's still flowing as of right now. Same thing here. East side of the pile, everybody gets tucked in here. When I was walking over here, I saw dark-eyed juncos flying out of here. All kinds of birds are sheltering in here. Now, I think we're getting better with the shelter. We have a lot of brush piles, different places. There's a lot more dying trees, just ash and different kinds of elms. And so there's getting to be some more cavities here. There's never enough, of course. But we're getting a little bit more on that. I think what we're really hurting on is still food. I don't understand how ever anybody can get enough food. Now, right in here, because it's so cold in the winter and it lasts forever. But look at these. This is honey locust. It's their pods. And last night we looked up and we saw 3 young deer over here feasting. And this is what they were chewing on, the honey locust pods. We've heard from a friend of ours who does a ton of nature observation that honey locusts are loved by deer, and we're seeing it here. So that is really neat to witness. We still have some apples out here and there that have just gotten kind of rotten for us, but nobody can really get a great bite of them because they're so cold. So back to my food for a moment. Some of these trees, like mast trees, they're going to take a while to produce. Oaks and hickories and even persimmons. That's a fruit tree, but man, it takes a while. But the shrubs, they can often get going earlier, and the vines. And so those are something we're so excited about here. Same with the wildflowers, anything that can offer food in the shorter term, and then also the food that's the longer term. So that's why we really keep working on this habitat diversity and habitat diversification, because when we moved in here, this trail right in here goes by this forest where Steve has thinned quite a bit, because it was a crazy amount of young maples and elms, and they weren't fruiting yet, they're not old enough, and they were too dense. And so this way we're trying to work on adding different species in. There's a tremendous amount of life out here, and they have my deepest respect because they know how to survive in weather that I really am not good at surviving in unless I have a shelter of some sort. And many of these, like our feathered friends, are out all night. The deer are out all night. A lot of the squirrels will tuck in, the Carolina wrens will tuck in, chipmunks will tuck into the earth, so everybody's doing what they need to do. But also so many of them have just adapted to this weather. And so I feel like what we can give them is the space to get the things that they need to survive, and that includes a tremendous amount of food. I mean, I think about how much food I eat, and it's a ton. It's a serious ton, and they need a ton. Can you imagine how many calories you must need to endure winter weather like so many of us have experienced? It's really mind-boggling. And so that's why also our climate stability is so important, because seeing our wildflowers not put on seed this year because it was too short for many different reasons, but what must it be like when a huge source of your food doesn't get to develop into the nutrition you need for the winter time? I'm just standing here in awe of all of these. And so what we're going to do is keep planting, keep promoting all of the foods that they like best. And so we're going to keep observing, and we will keep sharing that with you all, because most certainly observation is key. We are students of this planet, and that's what we're committed to doing, is learning and then enacting whatever it is that nature teaches us. And so we'll just keep you posted. If you have noticed certain plants that are just adored at your place for food or shelter, please let us know. We would love to hear what they are, so that we can get the word out there and all of us can keep making this planet even better for all the lives we share it with.